Episode 28 Design Company Podcast. And today we have an absolute superstar with us. This young man is not just an incredible musician and organizer of Exit Festival in Serbia and, got so many accolades to his name that I don't even know what else he's hiding in terms of his achievements. But please, before I start going off and boosting your credentials, please, Petar, tell us who are you?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to a fantastic podcast. It's a really honor to be here. And then for the great intro, really amazing. Yeah, so my name is Petar Savic, and I grew up in Balkans, in Serbia. Worked around the Exit Festival for many years, basically led their digital side. And for those who don't know, Exit Festival is around 250,000 people festival. We won three major festival awards, but this is kind of my past life. Before I moved to London 2014 and started working at UCL, that particular department called UCL Advances, that was all about entrepreneurship and the DTech. At the time, we were kind of running 30 programs. We were the world's largest entrepreneurial department, even bigger than MIT at the moment. And then there are some great companies coming out of UCL, like DeepMind, for example, and then many others that everyone knows. And then, yeah, this is where I fell in love with kind of working with students and then top talents, because I believe the best company, best innovation actually comes from those PhDs. And this ever since it's been my mission to work in venture science rather than venture capital, how we call it. And nowadays, I teach neuromarketing at the Imperial College London as a visiting lecturer, and I also coach and judge students and then work with their spinouts. Yeah, and then I kind of have few hats, but it's very simple. I'm not like Elon Musk, having millions of companies, but my main company is called Supreme Factory, and this is essentially a VC fund with accelerator program. We essentially started the accelerator program, virtual acceleration, and then we kind of raised the fund, 30 million fund to invest in deep tech AI and kind of companies that are bridging the gap between the Balkans, emerging Europe, and the UK. And lastly, I organize loads of events even nowadays as a part of Startup Grind London. And I'm a co-director of Startup Grind London, and that's the world's largest community of entrepreneurs. We are here to make friends, not contacts, help others than ourselves, and give first then take. So yeah, there you go, my quick intro.
Well, nice one. One thing I noticed about you actually, Petar, before having this podcast, I looked up what you were doing online. Actually, one of the questions I have for later is how do you organize yourself, which we'll ask later, just to do all those things. But to start with the most important design company area, right? Purpose, because doing stuff without a clear purpose is sort of useless. So I have a two-pronged question. First of all being, what is your purpose in the startup ecosystem? And then kind of on a more macro level, because you're part of Startup Grind, because you're part of a number of tech community things, what should be the purpose of the startup ecosystem in general?
Well, it's a tough question, really. I can tell you potentially what the purpose of Startup Grind is, and that's definitely to educate every single entrepreneurs on the planet. Yeah, we have few spin-outs or Supreme Factory, and this is also, we have a purpose as Buddha, and in Buddhism have a purpose to end suffering. In a way, we want to bring a positive impact and also generate investments and then kind of have some profit in that way of the balancing innovation to solve a really huge problem, essentially to end the suffering. So yeah, this is still what I kind of have as my main purpose to date. And I believe I will always stay true to that. It's just, life or company without the purpose doesn't make sense. So, I think our virtue, it's a virtue to have a purpose, and it's really hard for some people. But where this world is going, when you see the high collective consciousness just rising, you see ESGs and these big corporates, adapting sustainability goals, whatever that means, in that specter. But it is about having a purpose. Without the purpose, I'm not sure, what's the point of the game?
I mean, just to bounce off of that, Petar, before I pass over to JC, there's something very interesting there, which is corporates adopting ESGs. So what's quite funny is that design company, growth is usually the seventh final area after you've sorted out all the rest. But it seems like here, instead of going for like real purpose, we're just going for arbitrary ESG metrics. So, just
so, in terms of people, you are one of the people who is certainly been an inspiration to me and inspiration to many in London ecosystem of the startups. With Startup Grind being one of the biggest meetups in London, if not the biggest in the startup world. And you've dealt with so many different people that are doing businesses, from single man businesses up to people who've raised literally billions. So what is the, and yes, I could ask you so many people related questions, but we try and stick to one-ish per area. So what is the most important thing that you've learned within all your dealings with different types of people? What's the most important thing you've learned when dealing with people in business so far?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. I must kind of say that it's not my doing that Startup Grind is so big, and that we manage. It's about the team, and then other co-directors and then the ambassadors. There's just fantastic team to work with. And then to answer your question is really about having that mindset, right? Most of the design and marketing concepts is around why rather than how and what. And when you look at the building communities around that, or working with people who are very busy, or they're very, very expensive to hire or to work with, they would actually work for free and spare their time if you have a purpose, or you have that why feeling. And we're all about that, and that's our secret, really. Based on those things, we managed to kind of maintain that reputation of being one of the best places to go when it comes to virtual meetups or meetups in general, and having high-profile speakers always because of that. And this is how you drive connections, and because it's purposeful, I guess. We believe that giving back to the community is the key here, and sharing that, how I call collective intelligence, sharing knowledge between this. We grew up and grow as a whole ecosystem rather than us individuals. So there is no selfishness here. We're all about giving first, paid forward attitude, and so forth. So I believe, that's kind of the key, I think, virtue we have.
Love that you said collective intelligence, Petar. That's essentially a big part of the DNA of everything we're doing, which is that you can be the most intelligent person in the world. You will always mathematically be smarter with the 5 or 10 people, right people at your side. So it's just one of those things. So moving on then to kind of the systematic aspects, and like we said about people, and this is more of a personal one. As I said earlier, a question that we're going to come back to: how do you organize yourself to achieve your purpose and deliver value in all these various initiatives? I mean, you're a Tech London advocate, you're in Startup Grind, I believe you're still in academic environment and still leading a venture company. So how do you actually make sure that sort of the whole funnel is moving ahead, and that any time that you're doing a task, it's purposeful and it ties back to the greater purpose and it makes sense?
I mean, this is probably the toughest question ever. Time is the biggest commodity is in this day and age. You can't buy time. This is a problem, and I would encourage anyone not to sell their time. It's precious, literally. Once your time is over, you do exist in some different form, I guess. But you know what? I believe there is a concept of time and space, and as a quantum, but if you organize your time in a way that all the activities benefit each other, it could actually work quite well. So, if you think about the ecosystem of, essentially at the back of my funnel sits a VC fund, and I by law have to commit 80% of my time to that fund. But if you look at the Startup Ground, which is the world's largest community, there's a great pipeline and deal flow of the companies that we can champion, and founders in general that we can champion, on board, and then support. And obviously, there is now a geographical clusters around that. So I see Startup Grind as the kind of global community, London tech advocates or global tech advocates, I would call it. I co-founded a Balkan chapter, and we are now a part of Emerging Europe that we just launched and announced. So that's kind of the strongest business lobby in London, and it's globally. And then we have other roles that I've been previously involved in, such as advising Department of International Trade on Western Balkans, where Jason and I grew up basically. And then we have Serbian entrepreneurs and smaller kind of groups that I sit on board, and I only spend, let's say, a day or two a month on that. So if anyone really wants to succeed, you have to think about breaking around diverse activities in order to get there, because diversity is the key of innovation, I believe, because more minds, as you mentioned, mathematically you are smarter than one, and then if those minds are different from gender and ethnic perspectives, we get even better and then perform that. So I believe, when it comes to quantity and quality, mixture of that activities throughout the ecosystem, really, it's an essence of how I actually manage my time. And I just love working with younger people, with students, brightest minds. I get inspired as well when I teach. I also learn something new. And it's just, there is something about those neural mirrors where you talk to people in person, even, or via Zoom. You just get so much out of it, and I like to surround myself with the brightest people or smarter than me. So the more the merrier, I guess. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
No, but
it says the toughest one, I guess.
Well, we ask tough questions, but always with a good heart. Design Company podcast. You mentioned something I just want to.
I do have a secret though about the time.
Okay, tell us.
There is a way of how we as humans are affected by nature, and the circadian rhythm in particular. So you can't work all day or night. Many people have this sleep deprivation. They don't sleep enough, and they don't perform enough. Therefore, so I believe in that balance, or a wave of nature that goes into a flow state, and then you go to a twilight state, and you go into balance. And it's a circle you have to get in. And I use many different tools to manage my time, to manage my mind, to clear my mind out of many distractions and the noise we have around the internet and the world. And the two main things. One is that I grew up playing music a lot. And this is basically the key, and the rhythm and the dance and the music that I've tried to balance left side of the brain from my right, which is very analytical. And so balancing those two is great. And then meditation is probably my key element of success. I've been meditating for almost 20 years now, really. And it's been the essence of my success. And nowadays, meditation is more popular. And mindfulness is kind of a key thing for athletes and astronauts to get that few percent that you can just get with your clear mind. So yeah, that's the key essence for me.
Awesome. So you just kind of laid it up for me in terms of asking the next question, because you touched on innovation and you touched on younger minds and so on. And, we've got a little bit of a secret project, which we'll reveal in one of the upcoming episodes, where we're using Design Company to design a particular type of company with a super young founder. And we'll have him at some point as a guest. But from that young founder that I've been working with, he'd just speak to me in direct ways. Like he'd say, why don't you just blah? And whatever he says, it's just like so spot on. And I really appreciate that directness and non-apologeticness, just direct speaking the truth. And so I tend to learn from younger people much better as well. But how do you see innovation happening, for example, this year and going forward? And do you agree with someone like Peter Thiel that the startup sector is in the somewhat of a lull innovation wise? And I think there's a lot of buzz around. I'm watching a lot of, for example, analyses of the company called Nikola that's supposedly competing with Tesla, and it's very much like Theranos. There's a lot of this kind of boo boo boo, buzz buzz buzz, but no actual substance behind. What's happening in regards to innovation in startups in real terms, and who is worth kind of paying attention to in your view?
Well, from the Peter Thiel point of view, I believe the silicon bubble has burst essentially because of that fluffiness people startup have. To put it was a blockchain a few years ago. Now it's AI. If you put it, your valuation grows. Actually, when we do due diligence and look under the hood, there's no real machine learning even there. So it's very tricky to say what innovation is these days. But if you look at
the machine learning that has a bunch of outsourced people administering the spreadsheet, right?
Well, you know what? Advanced statistical approach is also good as long as you have the data science. I mean, data science is very heavy, and it could be a key factor to start innovating, really. But this is kind of how you structure the machine and then what comes out of the machine. But AI is now so kind of deep, and so kind of there are so many subsectors. But I see innovation as cross-pollination, really. I think that's the key now. If you put things together from even I see this in academia where you have this very diverse consortiums, and then people, they're doing cross-disciplinary research. They're mixing technology with science and kind of things you would never mix. And once you do that, you kind of literally get the magic. Like Nikola Tesla would innovate, really, and then people would thought it's magic, but that was like, we're talking about 100 years ago. It's ridiculous. And I think my absolute true hero that Jason mentioned is Nikola Tesla, really, and I follow his footsteps. We grew up in the same country. I then kind of essentially went somewhere outside to live our lives to fullest and pursue our careers. I mean, where there is a good ecosystem. But these time changes, and if you read books from Nikola Tesla, we're still kind of just on the verge of what he's been developing more than 100 years. It's ridiculous. And we see also now what Peter Thiel is investing. They obviously know something that we don't, or normal people don't know. Peter Thiel recently invested 50 million in Magic Mushroom Company. What does that tell you? True innovation is, I guess, true innovators were someone like Steve Jobs, Nikola Tesla, and these type of people. And if you look at what's the common with them, common things, it's very strange. It doesn't seem like your particular startup environment that now they're claiming to innovate, but they don't actually. So it's kind of, it does drive the purposeful approach with all of the. That's for me the common thing in innovation is that purpose to really do something impossible, with using different tools, from creativity to kind of motivation, and then just kind of go beyond your kind of logical mind and then beyond your notion of what could be possible. And I think that mindset is the only mindset that can innovate, really. This is a long topic. I'm sure we are short on time. So
it's a good one to open up and just kind of bounce on that. I actually agree fundamentally with you, Petar. Actually, it's kind of our innovation process as well. We find that the best ideas we have when working with Jason is often by confronting skills from different fields, right? So putting together management science with software engineering, and for example, coming out with a much better way to develop products, right?
Yeah, or turning one into the other. Like, what happens if you treat management as software problem, or treat software as a psychological problem?
so
exactly, I think that you're right. Yeah.
So these are, I think, the key things to keep in mind, right? Because as you said, science has gone very deep, especially in these past years with the emerging, sets of information. So being able to bring together different ideas from different fields and then do that in a productive way, rather than just seeking to be the best at one thing, is where we see the really exponential results. And so that leads nicely into the topic of products and exponential results. So, quick reminder, design company, what is a product? It's not like the app itself. It's more like the tangible, practical outcomes for the user. So I'm an accountant. My product is not my end of year tax return. My actual product is I'm not going to get a call from HMRC next year. That's the real product, right? So for yourself, Petar, what are kind of the main products, main outcomes, main things you're looking to achieve for the people that you're working with? And I would say maybe potentially in the context of your venture firm, although I'm sure within your other activities as well, you have other outcomes you're looking to achieve.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. So it's about what type of product is ours.
So when I said products, yeah, just like what's kind of the main outcomes that you're looking to achieve for the startups you're working through your venture firm or in your other activities?
I see. Well, at our firm, we look at the very specific product market fit. We even go deeper and we call it founders market fit. And this is kind of how you're looking at the product and beyond product on market. What's the fit with your customer? Is the customer is there a problem that customer has and that you could really solve? And this is something that customer can't live without. It's really kind of that point of innovation where it's either 10 times better, 10 times cheaper, and can drive that kind of growth in a way. It could drive itself. It can produce an own media, meaning that other customers would tell you, wow, to other friends, this product is great. It solves a problem. It does the thing it says it does. So, we look at those type of things, and whether we build spin-outs or we invest in startups, it's really important that our product is on spot. It's very hard to say when you're dealing with early stage companies. You have to look at the human capital and how they think about this question as well. And it's probably essential thing for us, and for me in general. My personal approach is that product needs to have a fit. It needs to click with the customer, and very well. I mean, on all points.
So when it comes to money, then how are you looking at money? Because I remember, I think one of the times when I, met you, perhaps I think it was first time when I met you, I was delivering a talk about the core parameters of money within blockchain companies. And I used the design company model to break out some of the aspects of money that I think make money actually worthwhile technology, especially within crypto world. But how are you looking at money today, considering that there's been all this kind of injections of trillions and the taps are just running open and crypto is where it is? I hear analyses that, Bitcoin is at its highest when you take out the bubble that happened, so normalized for that. Are you... And with regards to cash flow in startups, what are you looking at as the most valuable thing in respect to money in companies?
Fantastic question. By the way, I remember that talk. It was very inspirational. And I believe I filmed it and then live streamed it.
Yes, you had this like 360 camera. I was like, what the hell is this? Yeah.
Yeah. So basically that event happened at Ideal London, the place that I used to work, one of the innovation centers back in 2015 or something at UCL at Cisco. And yeah, I mean, back then it was blockchain and then Bitcoin was in its kind of highest bubble, I guess. It really drove loads of startups, ICOs and STOs and different things. They were really kind of pumped up money around the 21 and a limited amount of tokens and they were around. But if you look at the money, essentially it's all kind of it's not backed by intrinsic value. as many bankers and then money people say about Bitcoin, you know, because it has no cap. You know, people, governments, they print money. We all know it's a big scam. You know, ever since they cut the gold out of that, it's so funny. You know, but where this world is going with the money, you know, and we see this in nowadays in Silicon Valley, you know, which is pretty much bursting, you know, with this capital that is just pouring back into these companies. It's just now the trend to raise fund, you know. But well, you know, back in the day, companies didn't have to raise the funds. They were just kind of viable. They had the product that could make money, you know, and satisfy the customer needs. That was the deal. You just need a bit of money to kind of scale it or something. Now it's like it's a trend to raise money. Yes, and then that's where VCs are in general kind of growing, and that industry is growing. But the VC as now, and then it has been a lot. They don't have much success. You know, 9 of 10 companies fail, or you know, one succeeds, 2 other pay off, or something like that. That's kind of the standard, which is not the best deal, you know, but it still drives the economy and supports the innovation in a sense. And we see, you know, pension funds, family offices, and many other people now investing in deep tech and in tech startups in general through funds or directly into companies. I think that's real money they have. It's just I think money is virtual. I'm not sure, even if I know loads of people, loads of wealthy people, and then if you talk to them, you know, they're poor people, they're more happier than they are, because you know, money doesn't bring you happiness, or doesn't, you know, give you that type of value. You can buy stuff with the money, you can scale company with the money. That's fine, but it's not the most important thing in the world. There's something else. But I believe that people, you know, you can't live without money. That's the system of this world, and whoever set it up, you know, maybe a devil, maybe an advocate to the devil, but they actually set up the whole system of the money, which is I believe fake. You know, I still believe in exchange of values rather than money, and I would still kind of trade with you. You know, I can give you my services, you give me yours, and this is for me the fairest value. You know, rather than, you know, here's money that I might borrow from somewhere. And whoever gave me that money basically printed out of the blue.
I think
which
a
is
good way to
ridiculous
recap
to
that
think.
is money is important, but it's not the prime factor.
Absolutely not.
So Mo, what's your question in regards to growth then?
Well, what I like about growth is that, and actually, Petar, you're in the startup ecosystem, you're in London, so you have been in the middle at this, especially during kind of the 2015, 2018 bubble, where it was like growth, 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 excel in the J curve, excel in the J curve. So, I mean, you know, beyond the fantasy metrics, like, how do you define growth, and what kind of growth are you looking to achieve for yourself, for your team, for the companies that you're working with, beyond obviously the returns to your LPs that have invested in the fund?
Well, growth is I guess, after the bringing startups from the valley of death is hardest thing to scale. But I was very lucky to join Startup Grind, where it was only 100 chapters and so forth, and I witnessed and helped it grow to 650 cities now. And it's just I realized that, you know, growth, there are many ways of growth hacking, you know, and that term basically, you know, popped up a few years ago as well. And there are ways you can grow a company, you can grow marketing channels, you know, you can acquire new customers, or, you know, and then grow exponentially, really, with different tools and connections. I believe growth is defined by, you know, how many, I guess, customers you can have if you're scaling a business, or how well you can internationalize on a smart way, rather than, you know, you don't increase the costs as well as you increase the kind of geographic locations of your users and company, or just kind of get more reach. But it's fantastic. I mean, with growth comes more responsibility, and it comes more power, and sometimes usually you don't get to decide that much anymore. You know, you have a great story around the Apple, how Steve Jobs was you know, fired from its own company because, you know, with growth you get so much control to your investors, and that you just lose it, and then you don't make decisions that are based on your purpose, which is in the center of your ecosystem, yeah, which is it all about, I guess. Sometimes growth is not for everyone, I believe, you know, and then some of the companies have too much growth, especially if you look at the Facebook, Google, Facebook in particular, you know, and these leaders have too much power over others. And I believe what's going to happen in like 10 years from now, this is my vision, yeah, I'm a visionary. So my vision is we might not have this universal income that everyone kind of has equal stuff, but there will be a cap for how much you can grow, and then you have to just cut it down or split the company or just give it to the poor, or, you know, there will be a Robin Hood in the law saying that you cannot have that amount of power because it's just ridiculous. So growth has to be organic in a way, and natural, otherwise it can be very damaging to the ecosystem and to the humanity in general.
Well, look, from that perspective, I could give you a little bit of my vision for the future where every company gets standardized in terms of its management and operations through the designed company model. And that from the ground up, everything works in a way that it's intercompatible. Every company is intercompatible with one another, and that they can exchange value, however that money or value is measured or whatever it is, literally like APIs. So think of a company as a software, and that software is intercompatible, and the true value and true synergistic exchange of energy happens between companies, so that it enables companies to grow together like an ecosystem, which is what you've been working on. But it's, you know, both you and I know very much, and Mo knows this very much, that every startup is trying to reinvent the wheel, and we've got the wheel here, and we'll literally say to them, dudes and dudettes, boys and boyettes, right? There's no need for reinventing the wheel. This is the wheel. What do you actually want to do? Plug your purpose in, and we'll help you quite quickly work out what you want to do. And then, you know, find people like yourself and others who can plug in other aspects, whether that's money or growth or people, experts, and so on. And lo and behold, what you see is a much higher level of success, as opposed to, you know, 9 fail, 1 succeeds. It's more like 9 succeed, 1 doesn't succeed. It's not fail, but they can pivot into something else. And that's what Anya company, which Mo is building, is enabling through software, and design company ethos and philosophy is kind of wrapping it up, and it works even for podcasts and things like that. That's how we can sort of have a meaningful and holistic conversation here. And of course, like, we could be asking you lots more questions, you know, but maybe we can have you another time with a more specific reason to come and maybe present almost like a little lecture to the podcast on a topic that you think that might be specifically useful for startups and companies in general to grow. You know, because you're basically you're both a thought leader and a soul leader of
thank
community.
you so much.
Huh?
Yeah, thank you so much. It would be an honor really to come again and talk about more details and things around your fantastic framework. I think the fact that you have a purpose in the very center of your ecosystem and your metrics is fantastic, and I love the system. I think you really nailed down the design process of building a company, or basically applying it to anyone, because this is essentially it. I mean, you cover most of the things that are crucial.
Yeah, and so soon we're going to be able to actually demonstrate to you the end-to-end ecosystem that we've been building out. Because although I'm writing a book, many people thinking, oh, writing a book. It's like, we're not writing a book. Book is the very tip of the iceberg. This is a very like broad ecosystem of software, toolkit, consultancy, philosophy, and so on. And it applies from micro level tasks all the way up to the biggest corporations. And it's completely testable. It's completely self-reliant and makes sense. It's user experience driven, so that like an idiot can use it. And we've been cross-testing it with all sorts of different people, and they will get massive value at that 10x plus from it. So that's why, you know, we're excited. And, you know, to have support of you also to join our podcast and so on is absolutely fantastic. And, you know, we're looking forward to working a lot closer together going forward as well.
Absolutely. Likewise. Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
And who are you looking for, and where can people find more about you, just to wrap up?
Yes, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Petar Savic is PETAR SAVIC, and our website is supremefactory.net, where people can see more about new events that we do, new initiatives. They can apply for funding and then other things. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you so much.
Good to meet you, Petar.
Thank you. Likewise, Mo. Jason,
All the best.
Mo, it was a pleasure.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye-bye.